It is time to make network and security simpler and more flexible. Ariaka helps enterprises modernize, optimize, and transform their network and security experience with Ariaka Unified SASE as a service, the only solution that delivers performance, agility, simplicity, and security without trade-offs. Ariaka Unified SASE as a service is a purpose-built, cloud-based offering that securely connects users and applications anywhere in the world. Visit securityweekly.com/Ariaka, that's ARYAKA, to learn more. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Quick announcement here. You are invited to InfoSec World 2024 at Disney's Coronado Springs Resort in Lake Buena Vista, Florida, from September 23rd through 25th. Join top cybersecurity experts for this premier event. Save 25% on your pass by using code ISW24-SW25 when you register at securityweekly.com/InfoSecWorld 2024. Don't miss out on this exclusive opportunity. And now for the Enterprise Security Weekly news. You can, another URL I'm going to throw at you. You can check out securityweekly.com/ESW367. That's the episode number this is. If you want to follow along as we go through the news, or for links to the articles we're covering, or just to read my sarcastic comments, sometimes I put funny stuff in here that doesn't get read out. So, or extra links, as I do in the case of story number 12, which is about Chevron deference. Welcome, Katie. How you doing?
I am well. Happy Thursday, and happy Thursday before you go on some travel.
Yeah, you didn't get to hear
traveling podcast host.
Yeah, I am going to Brazil, and I'm gonna attempt to do the show from Brazil. We'll see how that works. I'll have to have a plan B in place just in case. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Maybe I'll have some tropical background behind me that won't be a virtual background replacement. So that could be fun.
If you come with one of those fruity drinks in a pineapple, I might just have to ban you from the show. It would just be too much taunting.
Speaking of fruity drinks in a pineapple, today is National Mojito Day.
Ooh.
Yep, that was today's day.
Very
you
nice.
missed that since you weren't here for the beginning. I do like a mojito.
I was not here, and I was unfortunately not drinking a mojito. I was doing some competitive intelligence, which was a lot less fun than drinking a mojito. Maybe it would have been more fun if I had been drinking a mojito and doing competitive intelligence.
I find competitive intelligence fun. I was doing some of that last night, and I don't even work in marketing or for a vendor. But it's
not that I dislike competitive intelligence. It's just that, and we've talked about it on the show so much, when looking at companies in security, and now I'm in, a specific space, the ASPM space, the AppSec space. There's, again, so many companies, and it's like this for every subcategory of security. Everybody's literally saying the same things. They're literally saying the same words. So it takes so much time and real precision to figure out who's doing what, because companies will say they're doing something, but then if you dig underneath the covers, you find out, well, they're not really doing something. They have a partner they're doing something with that's similar, but so it's very nitpicky type work, I find. And when I find information that's conflicting, I get angry, because there's no real way. Like, I can't go to my competitor and say, hey, can you tell me if this is true or not? Just like I wouldn't tell them if my competitor called me and said, hey, I could. I wouldn't get very far.
Yeah, it's and some of what you might be seeing is they did a pivot at some point, and they still have collateral and copy out there that's both pre and post. So I've seen that can be confusing, or God forbid they rebrand and change the name, and then it's really a mess. There's so much stuff to replace. But but yeah, it's tough. So the work I was talking about doing was putting together all the AI companies. I've been saying that forever. Like I
Yeah.
need to. We've been talking about all these AI security companies, seed rounds and Series A even, and I've been talking about putting them all together and organizing them. And I started that work last night, and it's a lot. It's a lot. One of the interesting things I found, there's about 20 companies using large language models to try and automate SecOps, like SOC tier one
Well,
SOC
that
stuff.
was that was the original thought, right? Is
Yeah,
so much
one of
data,
them.
so
Yeah.
many
Mhm.
alerts, so much information, different types of workflows for every
Addressing
little
alert
different
fatigue. Yeah.
situation. Trying to figure out, what playbook do I use for this situation, or if this changes slightly, do I use a totally new play? So it makes a lot of sense. I think I'm not sure it's come to fruition quite yet. And we have a few stories about AI, and one in particular that looks at getting rid of a particular AI model.
Yeah. 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 No, there's some interesting stuff in the stories. We should go ahead and jump in there. And yeah, I mean a lot of it is so it's interesting because some of the AI stories are coming to some conclusions about AI, which is why I've created this new category called AI indigestion. Whereas some of the security stuff we're talking about, I don't think we're quite there yet where we have any conclusions yet.
Yeah.
These companies don't have enough customers yet. I've yet to talk to anybody who's actively using any of these services or products. So I think we're going to have to wait a little bit longer on the security specific conclusions. But the general conclusions, if we jump right down to number 18, Goldman Sachs has a strong opinion on it, put together a whole
Yeah.
report on it. And yeah, they don't think the hype is worth what people want us to spend on it. And when we look at story number 17, this is actually a security company that is trying to. The idea is to put themselves in between you and the AI service, so that you can inspect the prompts, maybe block certain prompts. If people are putting in company sensitive data or something like that. So basically, like CASB, but uh, for AI tools. Whether you're running the model on prem or it's a third party like Chat GPT that you're using, and they were trying to just, I guess, create their own Chat GPT service, but more security focused using OpenAI in the back end. And they just gave up on it for multiple reasons. Didn't get good support from OpenAI. They wouldn't respond to them, and too much latency. Like it was just
Too
very
much latency
inconsistent,
and
and
too much
customers complained
cost
about
as
the
well.
wait. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So I've been using it to test it out as well, and I hit my limits pretty quickly. I am not using the pro platform, so I have lower limits, obviously, but
Oh, okay.
it's
Yeah.
really easy to get to a threshold. And so I imagine a company who needs to do a lot more processing. It's like, when cloud first started, how much are we going to use? How much are we going to consume? Oh, shoot, how do we control the cost? And then if you have to deal with the discrepancies in the data, you're going back and you're adding a manual component to something that was supposed to be facilitated by automation. And they, just specifically, they didn't say they were, not going to use any AI. They just said that they were moving away from open AI. So
Yeah.
there is a
Yeah.
little
They're
bit of
using open
ambiguity
source.
in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They're
So
yeah. So you can roll your own models. There are tons of them
yeah,
out there. The llama ones are pretty prevalent. The ones that came out of Facebook out there, and there's more and more popping up every day.
yeah,
But one of the other things I thought was interesting is one of Vera's complaints was that you have to prepay for credits on with OpenAI when you're using their API. And when your credits run out, that's it. So like their product just stopped working when their credits ran out, and they were upset about that. And it's as opposed to it just continuing to charge a credit card or something like that, and keeping working, which is pretty surprising that OpenAI would do that, because then you need a whole separate bit of code that says, "Are we running out of credits? If yes, buy more." Which is stupid. That should just work on their side, but it also reminded me that even in AWS, there are some hard limits on things. I've worked for vendors
Yeah.
where our product just stopped working because AWS puts an artificial limit in place on some of their services. So it doesn't just infinitely scale. There are limits placed in a lot of these services.
Which is unfortunate when you're trying to run a business.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
imagine if everything, I mean, just, think about when your internet is slow, or think about, when you can't get to something just for yourself. How frustrating it is
Yeah.
in this day and age. We expect things to work. We don't expect disruptions. The speed of what we do is very different than it was 20 years ago. And so even on a personal level, that's really frustrating. Now your whole business is at a standstill. That's
Yeah.
really not acceptable to anybody, any more than it would be if it was a DDoS attack, any more than it would be if there was some, hurricane or a flood that wiped out some of the infrastructure, right? So having something that's known, maybe it wasn't known to Vera, maybe they didn't realize what was going to happen, but it was certainly known to OpenAI. And whether they didn't communicate it or Vera didn't read the contract closely enough, that part I don't know. But
Yeah.
if it wasn't known and it disrupts the business, customers could be gone like that, especially for a younger company.
Yeah, and it's tough to build in redundancy when you're a young company, when you're just starting out. But the capabilities there. I would think the switching from OpenAI's API to Anthropic, and using Claude instead, like you wouldn't really need to change much. Like it's just prompts, input and output for the most part. So it should be pretty simple to switch over between those if one stopped working. But yeah, something to consider, I think, for startups. If you're highly dependent on a single third party vendor, that can get pretty nerve wracking.
Yeah.
When that vendor has a bad day.
Yes.
Let's jump back up to the funding here. Abnormal Security raised a round. We don't know the amount, but set to be valued at $5 billion. So I think that's somewhere around what we were saying the new unicorn needed to be. Talking to Tyler, some
I
needed to
had
be,
thought it was
well,
3, but
there's
either
revenue
either
numbers
way, it's
too.
not. Yeah, either way, it's not one anymore. We know that.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're a private company, so we don't know the ARR number, but that's also no longer 100 million today. It's more like 200, 350, something like that. Tyler was saying, I think. So, but still, quite a landmark. There's not a lot of security vendors,
Yep.
especially after we've seen everybody's valuations reset, that are worth 5 billion or more.
Yeah,
And
in this economy and in this environment, getting to 5 is really something. It's really pretty impressive. This article does say that they've raised just under 400 million. So if the
Mhm.
company really is valued at 5 billion, that's a good balance sheet. I mean, again, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, so I don't want to talk out of turn, but if it's only a 374 million raise, they're doing well enough that it's a 5 billion valuation. That's true on the market. Um, that's great for them, because I don't think there are a lot of companies that have that multiple today.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've heard nothing but good things about Abnormal. So I think it's clear that they've got a really good word of mouth campaign going on there. customers recommend them pretty regularly in the back channels on the Slacks and places like that where security buyers talk to each other. Um, I thought it was interesting. Portswigger is, was raising some money. I think this is private equity, so I don't know if this was an acquisition. I don't know the amount, but this is the company behind Burp Suite. So we've seen this happen a few times. We saw it happen with Paterva and Maltego, a South African-based security product vendor, where these were extremely popular. Like, and when I say extremely, like every pen, like I think Kali Linux has both Maltego and Burp Suite preloaded on it. Like that's how popular. Like all the pen testing distributions have it preloaded. So very popular freemium uh, products that are known as products. You don't really think of the company as much, but they grow them and build them into commercial vendors and yeah, now it's uh, I guess it's like a formal vendor now. One Password was almost like that. Like they were bootstrapped for a while, and then boom, out of nowhere, 200 million in funding or 250, something like that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
pretty,
this
pretty.
says 15 years. They've been in business for 15 years, and this is the first investment that they've taken. So it'll be interesting to see what, if anything, this changes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. Does it ruin the product? Does it continue to be kind of the standard for people who do web app pen testing? Um, and web app security assessments. But yeah, it's always interesting seeing a company that's been bootstrapped for a decade or more suddenly taking some investment.
Right. Maybe
Um,
maybe the founders will end up on a beach with you in Brazil, which would be good for them for
maybe.
15 hard years of work.
And we've got some interestingly sized seed rounds here. We've got a $28 million seed round, a $21 million seed round, and a $16 million seed round here from respectively Cybersecurity, Command Zero, and Cytactic. So I included these mainly because these are big for Series A's, much less seed rounds. And one of them, Command Zero, if I'm reading that right, this money, this 21 million seed round was basically raised off the guy's reputation. It doesn't sound like there's even a company or a product yet. But because
Command
he had a good
Zero.
exit to Palo Alto, like that, I guess buys you a lot of trust.
Yeah, so this one, Command Zero, was co-founded by Dov Uran and Dean DeBeer and Alfred Huger, I guess. I don't know him, but I know Dean and Dov from years ago. And yeah, this is I don't know how much of the product actually exists, but their reputations are very strong. They've been
Oh,
very
yeah. Not
successful
just one
in the
exit.
right.
Yeah,
Yes,
7 successful cybersecurity exits to date.
right.
They've sold companies to Symantec, McAfee, SourceFire, Cisco, and IBM. Okay, so yeah, okay, yeah, you can have the money.
Right. Right. So that one I'm not super surprised about. I don't know nearly as much about Cider
Mhm.
or the other one, uh, Cytactic. But that's an interesting combination
Yeah,
of letters
so I mixed
to
them up.
try to make people spell.
Cider is the one that was the one where the previous company was sold to Palo Alto for 300 million. No, he previously sold Cider Security to Palo Alto. I don't know that we even have. Okay, there is a name. Sola Security is the name of the new company, and yeah, $28 million seed round.
I can't get to the press release because there's a giant ad on it, and my ad blocker isn't
Yeah,
working. So
yeah, those are annoying. And yeah, the other one with abnormal is Business Insider, and that's got a paywall. Yeah, I'm just so tired of these. Um,
Literally just a big ad. Cytactic looks like an interesting platform. Again, 16 million for a seed round is pretty huge. They say they orchestrate cyber crisis management readiness
mhm.
processes and training. Again, seems like a busy space, but
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. I mean, it's interesting. It's one of those things where like I'm not sure that you need a software platform to do that. I've known plenty of folks who have done pretty well with just collaboration software, things like that. But yeah, it would be interesting to see what they build here. Because the thing about cyber crisis management, incident response, is you want to be really careful about how closely integrated that platform is to the things that are going to get hacked, because you want your communications to be out of band. You want them to be available, where you can access them. So you don't want to tightly integrate them with the other stuff. If Okta gets hacked and Okta is how I log into Psychtactic, you know, maybe I don't get access to my crisis response plans. So it'd be interesting to see how they solve for that particular problem. Um, yeah, and one of the others, Command Zero's interesting. They're talking about um, resolving the most. These are their words: the most significant bottleneck in security operations, which they say is investigations. Which typically, that's the part that you need a human to do. And in my research, I mentioned 20 companies that are doing using LLM for security ops, but it's all pretty low level stuff. It's all tier one stuff, and this is talking about tier two and tier three, which you're getting into the thinking area. Where somebody's got to do analysis, they have to have a lot of context, they have to go fetch a lot of information to understand what they're looking at. So I don't see how you do this without a very large, what I call a customization tax, which is the space between the product you get handed by the vendor and the amount of work you have to do to make it useful. So, like sim products have a huge customization tax.
right.
I don't see how you get away with this without also a huge, very long implementation time, very long time to value.
Again, though, it'll be interesting to see because we've got some founders with a really good history. Um, Maybe there's truly something new and different coming.
Yeah, yeah, so it's seed round. We're not going to get a whole lot of information
Nope.
yet, but yeah, maybe I can when they've got a product ready, we can get a briefing or something like that. I included story number 7 is just a link to one of Mike Privet's security funded newsletters, which, if you're interested in any of the stuff we're talking about, funding, acquisitions, the startup space, highly recommend checking out his newsletter and getting subscribed. It's one of the primary sources for a lot of what we talk about on this podcast. But I just included the whole thing just because I thought there was so much niche stuff in here in terms of what was getting funding. So roughly half of the funding items were just felt super niche to me. Like one of them is a data protection platform just for Salesforce apps. Another one's another data protection platform just for S3 buckets. Like that seems so narrow to me. I'm trying to imagine like who is so all in on one of these things that they need to buy a product just for S3 buckets. It seems very niche. Another's a mobile threat hunting platform, a confidential computing platform, which is a very, very niche space. I've talked to probably half a dozen companies that have done confidential computing in the past, and I've never known any of them to have more than 3 customers at any point in their life.
My favorite one on this list is the quantum resistant encryption key distribution platform.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like, yeah,
So,
we need to change our encryption algorithms to be, post quantum algorithms, but do we need to buy a product to do that?
somebody will.
I guess,
I
but
sort of get into this in my latest the Cyber Y
Mhm.
article. Now, this was what I wrote about was specific to the whole DR space, but it's about the hyper segmentation of the market. And Tyler and I went back and
Mhm.
forth quite a bit on back channels before we published it. How much should we get into commentary of the industry and what it is doing or allowing with, everything being chunked off into these micro segmented categories when really it rolls up to a larger
Is this the word
category.
soup
So
one?
it's the word soup one, yeah. So
Okay.
we didn't really get into it. Sorry, that crash was my blind dog running into something. Um, we didn't really get into the commentary on the market, but sort of behind that article is the idea that lately we've been starting to see all different kinds of categories that are just so niche, and it feels like it's constructed just to make vendors exist.
Yeah. Yeah, as
And that
just
seems to be, I haven't read the whole thing here from Security Funded, but it seems to be also a little bit of this as well. Data protection for Salesforce, data protection for S3. Couldn't they be the same thing? Couldn't, could have some
right,
minor
right.
differences, but yeah, exactly.
And aren't there already more general things out there that you could use for those platforms? S3
Yeah.
is one of the oldest AWS. I think it was one of the first 5 AWS products that was ever released back in like 2006. So you're just coming out now with data protection for S3 buckets? Like there's got to be a story behind that.
Or
Yeah,
at
I'll
least a
include.
certain number of buyers until the company gets bought by a bigger company.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, sometimes these companies are intentionally started as a company that a very specific company can acquire, and you'll see that like the funding will come from the company that will eventually acquire it. Like Chronicle is an
Yep.
example of that, Google Chronicle. It was always intended for Google to bring it back in, but they wanted it to grow as an independent company. So we've seen that sometimes with Cisco. Cisco Ventures will fund a company that they intend to acquire later on. Sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes Cisco will put that investment in, and somebody else will buy them. But I think they get at least first right of refusal in some of those cases as being one of the primary investors. So maybe that's part of what's going on here, and it's only going to make sense after these companies get acquired, and then we'll be
Right.
like, oh, that's what was going on. I will drop your article in the show notes as well. I did see that you released that, but it didn't make it into the show notes. It was a little slightly more unorganized than normal, which isn't saying much. All right. So acquisitions. I thought this was interesting. That do you know anything about Noetic Cyber?
I do. I know quite a
They're a
bit
chasm
about
company.
Noetic. They are
Speaking
a
of
chasm
competitive
company.
intelligence,
Yeah, well, not anymore, unfortunately,
right?
but uh, again, this is a space, and when Tyler and I were both working in the chasm space, we felt very much that chasm was going to roll up, and here we go. I
Yeah.
mean, I think this is definitely the start. Um, I don't have any inside information. I wish I did. I could be really, really rich, but I feel like we're gonna start to see some pretty good consolidation at the end of this year and into 2025. It's just the market is it was right for it a few years ago. I think some of these tools have hit their limits. I think it's one thing to say, hey, we can give you a complete inventory. We can tell you what issues are with your assets. We can do some vulnerability remediation, but the market can only go so far until it rolls up into a bigger space. And you're going to have big companies like Rapid7, like CrowdStrike, like Palo looking to buy these companies. What's interesting about this is not just number seven, that Rapid7 is acquiring Noetic, but that there's a rumor that Rapid7 themselves is looking for a buyer. So I don't know anything
Yeah.
about that, but I did think that was interesting that they have just acquired, and perhaps they're also looking for some exit strategy as well.
Yeah, and maybe this is part of their sales pitch is, for many, many years now, for over a decade, we've been seeing the big three vulnerability management vendors, Qualys, Tenable,
Yeah.
and Rapid7, trying to evolve beyond just vulnerability management. And I
Yeah.
remember when I was an analyst advising Rapid7 to do this because they still put their vulnerability scanner as their flagship product. And I was saying, it makes sense to just think of the vulnerabilities that you gather as just a source of data. Like this is just one of many signals. That it was obvious back then that that's where this was going to move, where that's just one set of data, that as a security team you need to keep track of and you need to correlate with other things.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe we see these guys. Already Qualys has been leaning pretty heavily on asset management. They've got a free community edition of their asset management tool that they give away. So it's going to be interesting to see where these guys move because there's the problem is there's so many use cases, right? Like every time Chasm comes up, like I've had a lot of conversations with Guillaume Ross, also who's at Jupiter One, and yeah, it's like it seems like you should be able to do this with this, but that requires some extra development, and that requires yet another dashboard, and it's gets pretty big what you could build there.
Exactly.
All right, updated the show notes. Got your if I don't do it now, I'll forget. So I just added yours right now, so that is done. Um, the other interesting essay we have there is I don't know who created this. It seems intentionally anonymous, but there's a website called cyberisfull.com that kind of refutes the whole idea that there's millions of jobs to be had in cybersecurity, and this kind of rant. And this is from back in March, but I only saw it recently. Published by Chadley McCyberton, which I don't think is
Yes.
anyone's real name.
I
Um,
hope not, but good on Chadley. I mean, I think we've been talking about this sort of behind the scenes. On the one hand, I think most cybersecurity professionals know that the quote talent shortage is the exact fear, uncertainty, and doubt that we tell everybody not to talk about, but at the same time, like to talk about how bad it is, because then that makes our job seem harder and more important, and more, we're needed more. If you can say, oh my goodness, I'm in this field and it's so busy and I have to work 22 hours a day. Some people need that in their lives to feel good. But the reality is this, hyperinflation of numbers, it's never been actually that bad. And if you look
Mhm.
at other fields, I mean, completely unrelated to cybersecurity, you've got the medical field understaffed. You've got, just anywhere you look, they've got similar problems. We don't have very high unemployment right now.
Right.
And worldwide, last time I checked, it was something like just under 5%. So it's not like this would be unique to cyber
And, and,
if
and none of
we
those
need
openings
people.
are entry level jobs.
Right.
Almost none of those. It always struck me as strange from the beginning when people started trying to get directly into cybersecurity, because I've already always viewed it as like a secondary layer type of job where, you know, if you're in cybersecurity, particularly if you're working for an enterprise, you're helping to secure something. Well, you better know that something that you're helping to secure, whether it's a physical facility or applications or a network or data or whatever that word in front of security is. Like if you don't already know that stuff, what do you have to offer as a security analyst or a security engineer? Like you got to already have some base level skills. And
Right.
I was kind of convinced out of advising that for a while. So for a while, I did advise people to go directly into cybersecurity because it seemed like there's such a breadth of different jobs. But then after mentoring several people and watching them go through this frustrating process of trying to, after getting a degree, paying for a cybersecurity degree, paying for boot camps, for expensive training, for a bunch of certs, and then nobody will hire them because they don't have 3 to 5 years of experience. And they're like, Adrian, where do I get that 1 to 3 or 0 to 5 years of experience? I was like, you're going to have to go into IT first and laterally move over. I don't know what else to tell you. So that's kind of where my advice is back to, and that's kind of the TLDR of this whole website, which is a lot of what they're saying is true. I think they're going a little too far, but I agree with, I'd say 90% of what's on the site.
Well, Ranty gets eyeballs, so but yeah, I think there are some valid points in here, but it's done obviously with a little bit of humor and snark. So,
Yeah. All right. I love number 10. I love that Slack is looking for ways to, because it always seemed possible. Like you shouldn't be able to just move a cookie from my computer to your computer and then you're logged in as me, right? But that's exactly what InfoStealer malware does. And there are
yep.
whole marketplaces where people, can buy and sell logged in credentials, and we've seen them used in attacks effectively. So it's
Yep.
great seeing Slack. I've got to imagine other folks are also working on this problem, but trying to automatically invalidate sessions that look like they've been moved from one system to another, potentially compromised or stolen. But I can also imagine maybe you get some false positives on that, which they address that as well. So it's a really good read.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly interesting because the whole cookie thing, obviously, we're in a different situation here than in Europe too. But even when you go overseas and you start getting online and you go to websites and you're given options, it's intentionally made hard to opt out. And most people aren't
Yeah.
going to take the time. They're just going to click accept all and not think about it. I don't. I try to go through, but even I get frustrated. Like, this is our day job. This is what we do. This is what
Right.
we think about. There are sites where I will just get so frustrated and eventually just click accept all because they make you go through so many steps. And it's not only annoying, not only do I not want to be tracked, but like you said, it could be, a potential liability, um,
Well, and this isn't
and the cause of
those.
something bigger.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of a different use case for cookies. This is specifically like the reason you don't have to relog into every app on your iPhone every day. It is because those credentials are, they create no auth key and it's stored in a cookie somewhere. on your
Right, but there
device.
is the
So
potential for those to be used in exactly that same way. So the automation of having that removed, I think that's, maybe I'm looking at it in a too roundabout way. I don't know. I need more coffee.
yeah, I mean, we've got to balance the convenience of not having to log into everything every day, because there's a lot of software that we're logged into. Like I check 5 email accounts every day. If I had to log into every one of those email accounts every day, like I would just lose my mind. But at the same time, I am currently logged into all 5 of those in my browser. And if somebody came and swept up my cookies, I'm actually not sure if they would then be logged into all of those. I don't know what defenses my SaaS email providers have in place to keep that from happening. It's
Exactly.
something I should test. But instead of testing that, I tested something else. I looked at and this is story number 16, looked at the Rockyou2024 file, because everybody's probably seen the headlines by now. 10 billion passwords leaked. And it is true that if you run wc-l, which is word count, the command line utility in Linux for word count, and the -l tells it to count lines, it will count almost 10 billion lines in that file. But if you actually look at the contents of the file, there's not a whole lot of passwords in there. There's a lot of garbage in there. I have no idea where it came from. A lot of it's Russian. There's a bunch of unprintable characters in there. It looks almost like somebody just outputted the contents of an entire directory of files that were maybe compromised in some hack at some point, and just shoved it into this file and called it a password file. But this links to some more specific analysis than what I did. So I've got a Mastodon thread where I actually share some screenshots of what the contents of the file look like. Clearly not passwords. And but the one I linked to here from Spec Ops, they do some more specific analysis and tell you what's actually in the file, but very unlikely that anything new is in the file from the Rockyou 2021. And really the reason I did this is just because it sounds unbelievable, so it probably is. And it didn't take me, the vast majority of time was just downloading the file and unzipping it. So it doesn't take too much work to do some due diligence here, and it just hurts me that so many people just blindly shared this headline that was sounded too good to be true, and it was. Because like, it's a great headline, right? It's
It
like,
is a
I
good,
work in
yeah. I
security.
mean,
Like, this is why I do security, or this is how bad you guys are at security. Look at all this awful stuff happening. Like, it supports so many agendas and narratives and arguments that people,
mhm.
I feel like people don't want to discredit it. They don't want to do the validation. They just want to assume that it's real, or maybe it's just fatigue, just that every single password has been compromised so many times already that we're just we don't even think to check it. Maybe, I don't know.
It sort of feeds in, I guess, to the other story of, 3 gajillion more security practitioners. It's the same type of headline.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Clickbait. We
It's
like
just
clickbait.
yeah, and it's kind of ego pumping, self importance clickbait too, which
Yeah.
I think it's healthy uh, to be skeptical when you see that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it just yeah, it's a great headline, so probably not true.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, that would be a complete waste of time for any attackers to use. So, your response to that should be basically nothing. Like, it should have no impact on, you should not have redirected any resources as a result of reading this headline. Let's see, what have we not covered? So the whoopsies, we got 2 whoopsies here that are fun. I've been skipping around. Let me see if there's anything else. No, I think we're good. Um, so one whoopsie, and maybe this should have been AI indigestion, but Figma basically rolled out AI features before they were really fully baked and tested and ready. And apparently everybody's getting rid of their safety and privacy teams and stuff like that. So they don't have anybody to tell them that there are problems here anymore. But yeah, Figma would just spit out Apple's weather app if you asked it to create a mobile weather app, like almost identical copy of it. So they apologized. They pulled the tool down, and CEO basically says, "Yeah, I pushed too hard for this to get released early." And that's not the first of those that I've heard. I feel like every week I'm hearing a CEO say, "Yeah, we pushed out our AI product too early."
Well, yeah. I mean, if you go back even 3, 5 months when we were talking about AI, and every company with AI in the description or in the name was getting funded, it made everybody think, we're ready for, this is it. We're ready for prime time. We're going. It's got to be. And eh, it's just a data model. At the heart of it, it is just a data model. And if you don't have the right data, if you don't have enough data, if your algorithms go a little haywire, you've got problems. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, we're not at this panacea stage, not even close.
yeah, yeah. So the other whoopsie here, my old boss, Alexandre Sierra, and I mentioned this in my interview with Enrique earlier. They spotted something weird happening with Google Workspace. So Google announced that they were going to enable two-factor authentication, what they call two-step verification, for all Google Workspace admin accounts. And when it was supposed to happen, they somehow all admin accounts no longer had two-step verification and being enforced. So like the opposite thing that was supposed to happen happened instead. And the folks at Tenchi were like, surely this is a false positive. Like Google wouldn't make a mistake this bad, would they? They wouldn't do anything this dumb. No, they did. Turns out it was not a false positive in their product. They detected in real time Google hitting the wrong switch for all the workspace admin accounts. So hopefully that's fixed by now, and all Google Workspace admins don't have 2FA turned on off, because otherwise it would be really bad for us to be talking about it, because you could just do
Yes.
some credential stuffing, maybe use that Rockyou2024.
Maybe that's the Rockyou file that's come. Maybe this was prescience here.
Yeah. So yeah, it was great that they caught that. I love the story of you know how to put this, like the tiny startup getting to tell Google that they screwed up. It's kind of a fun story. Like a underdogish kind of story. Of course, they're dependent on
Yeah.
Google. That's one of the key features of their product, is going through and finding misconfigurations and things like that in Google Cloud and Google Workspace. So
What a
yeah, apparently their
wonderful
product works.
sales, right? What a wonderful sales tool use case,
Exactly.
um, customer study for them. I mean, go Tenchi,
E-
use it.
Exactly. You couldn't put together better marketing than that. So
No,
yeah,
no,
make sure
and
your
Google,
product actually works. And
yeah,
like that's step one. Like if your product actually works, then you can do some cool stuff with it, like this.
there you go.
Um, what else here? So number 20 is just I found a GitHub where somebody is compiling all the annual cybersecurity reports that vendors put out. So this could be a useful reference if you're trying to do like a meta study on reports, or you're just looking for specific reports to get some stats for something that you're writing. I can think of a lot of different reasons that this compilation of vendor reports could be useful. So we've got that link there. And then the last one here, I'm going to need you to click that link. I want your feedback here, Katie. This is our
Okay, I
squirrel
have I
story.
have not I have not done this before, so anybody watching, this will be my real life. Should I turn on the video?
Yeah. Go ahead and run the video. I don't know if we'll hear that or not, but I'm not sure that you have to run the video to get the point of what the product does.
The action. Minimalist focus tool with pen, paper organizer, and stand to capture ideas and take daily action, turning inspiration into reality. Rewards aren't guaranteed, but creators must regularly update backers. Okay.
So what's the product? What describe the product that you're looking at? You can
I
just scroll
mean,
down and you can see it. You don't have to watch the video.
it looks like a mobile phone or a piece of paper. Well, the woman's on a phone, but it looks like she... Oh, geez. Okay, so it's a mobile phone case with pen and paper in it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I
It is.
like to make paper lists, and my printer doesn't work anymore, so
So I'm not trying to make fun of it. You know, for a lot of the time that I carried a smartphone, I also had a moleskin uh, um, in my wallet, one of the small moleskins that fits in the back pocket of men's jeans. I can't speak for women's jeans. I'm sorry. Apologies to the other gender. You guys get screwed on pocket sizes or on pockets entirely.
yeah,
But
but then we have to carry purses. It's really uncomfortable and annoying, or just
yeah,
make our husbands carry our keys. Yeah,
there you go.
which is what
I
I
get
do.
asked to carry a lot of things.
Yeah.
But it's I'm not sure if I like it or not, you know, because so I get it. You know, even though your phone, you can get a Samsung phone with a stylus and you can take notes on it. And one of my favorite features of the Samsung Note was when they added the ability to take notes without unlocking the phone. So if you slid the S Pen out of its little storage compartment, it would automatically make the screen enabled for just scribbling a note. And you could scribble a note, you could save it, which meant you never unlocked your phone, you never get distracted by any notifications or anything. Like it just became a notepad. But iPhones don't have that, you know, and most Android phones don't have that. That's one specific phone that has that feature. And that's what they're talking about here is that you could take notes on your phone, but then you know you're going to realize you need to catch up on Instagrams that somebody sent you and TikToks that somebody sent you, and that email looks important, and you completely forgot. It's just sad to me that we need paper attached to a smartphone because
You
the
know, I
smartphone
don't
can't.
hate this idea though, because what's coming to mind for me, and maybe because I am going tonight, is the grocery store. So now we go to the
Yeah.
grocery
Hmm.
store, right? And sometimes I'll make a list on my phone, or sometimes I just pull up the recipe on my phone and that's my grocery
Yeah.
list. But what happens when you're grocery shopping? You put your phone in the cart or the basket or the whatever, you pick
It
some of the
turns
stuff
off.
that you remember, and then you have to
Yeah.
go, and if you know, you have to unlock your phone, and then sometimes the page resets and then you have to scroll down. And so everybody's
Yeah.
literally walking around the store like this, right?
Yeah.
If you have the paper list, which I usually do instead of the phone. If I, you know, if I'm going on a
Yeah.
weekend, I make a paper list instead. And then I can take, this is my list for tonight. So here you go. So it's actually a paper list. If the list is on the phone, or is not on the phone, I can put that in my cart, keep it at the bottom, and I can just look at it. I don't have to
Yeah.
touch it. I don't have to unlock it. I don't have to scroll on it. I can keep
Yeah.
going, and I can also watch for people who are walking around like this with their phone in front of their face so they don't smash into me. So, you know, I'm a little older.
Paper
I am
beats
not
phone.
23. I'm still 32. No, just kidding. Um totally kidding. I don't think it's a terrible idea because yeah, I mean, aside from the hey, you could get distracted by your email, or oh, look at this cool video, or oh shit,
Yeah.
work's tech, you know, work's slacking me and it's 1 o'clock and I'm supposed to be in the office instead of doing something else. It's an efficiency thing. It really is. You got your little paper list. Mine sits on the bottom of my cart and I just look at it.
Yeah, no shade. I also like it, and I'm considering spending money on it both for myself and as a gift for somebody else. I just, the irony of it bugs me. I do love that they came up with a pen that can fold completely flat, so that's kind of cool. I don't know if you
That is
noticed
great because then,
how
yes, it
the
makes it
pen
easy for
flattens
men to
itself
put in
and
their
fits inside the
pockets.
case. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a neat that's a very, very creative way of getting a pen in there so that you can be sure to always have a pen. And it looks like everything's magnets too. Everything's held together with magnet, and it's also a phone stand. So yeah, it's just, it struck me as a good squirrel story because it's the irony that we've got these powerful computers. Like, I don't know about your phone, but I have maybe 7 notes apps, and I'm still gonna write on paper.
Yeah.
Uh,
Grocery list.
oh well, that's yeah, that's the state we live in. Well, thanks, Katie, for joining me today. Sad we couldn't have
Happy
Tyler, maybe Darwin here. A lot of fun stuff here, but I enjoyed going through the news with you today.
happy to be here and happy Mojito Day. May you potentially, if you don't have a mojito, have something else to chill out and relax. Because I know you've been crazy.
Yeah, we've got so mint grows outside wild, and I do have limes. I think I've got everything I need.
Go muddle. Go
Yeah,
muddle.
I'm gonna go muddle.
All right.
All right. Big thanks also to everyone watching or listening to this week's episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. Believe, let me actually check because I'm often wrong. I believe we will be back next week. As I wait for this to load.
I don't think there are any holidays. I mean, there's Bastille Day, but
yes, we will be back next week. Got some good interviews and another new segment next week. It looks like we're mostly back to 2 interviews every week. I'm really looking forward to July 25th. We're going to have 2 SecOps interviews. We got Greg Notch, the CISO of Expel, and Edward Wu, who is the founder of DropZone AI, which is one of those SecOps using AI to automate SecOps companies. So I'm really excited about that conversation. But next week, we've got Tyler Wallen, Jarrett Roderick, and Richard Hollis. So a lot of great interviews coming up. Check back in with us then.